Hey everyone, welcome to another top 10 list. This week's top 10 list is the top 10 notes that didn't make the top 100. In my opinion, there's a bunch of notes in that top 100 that, let's face it, none of us are ever going to get. There's a lot of notes that none of us have ever heard of, and when you start reading through the list, you start asking questions like, well, if the 50 made it, how come the 20 didn't make it? Or whatever the case may be like that. So reading through that list, I could easily cut out 10 notes without a problem. So if I was to cut 10 notes out of the top 100, that would leave me with a top 90. So what would be the 10 notes that I would put in that list? And that is what this week's top 10 is. The top 10 notes that did not make the top 100. So, number 10. I'm starting off with the 1923 silver certificate. 1923 silver certificate, this is the last large size note, and it's the first note to have a very familiar look. If you were to look at a $1 bill compared to this one, with the exception of the size, you could easily tell those apart. But other than that, it has the basic same design. Now, when you under close inspection, you're going to notice that there are differences in the notes, aside from it just being a silver certificate as well. But this is a very familiar design to everybody. And because of that familiarity, yes, I can talk today, that makes this one of the more popular notes to have. So with a note as popular as this particular one, you would think that this would have made the top 100, but it did not. So that's number 10 on my list, the 1923 $1 silver certificate. Number 9. Number 9 on my list, I brought out one of my fractionals. Now, there is a fractional listed in the top 100. It's a third series 50-cent note. And there is also the fractional shield, which is basically a shield shape of all of the particular fractional currencies. Well, that means you'd have to have every single fractional. If they were gonna pick out one to put in there, the one that they picked, I don't necessarily agree with. But here's a fractional that should have made the list. What this particular one is an 1863 second series fractional currency. And this one is the 25-cent fractional. Take a peek at the back. It's a little crooked in the holder, but that's okay. 25-cent fractional currency. Now, why do I think this one goes on there? Well, you know me. When it comes to collecting, I like things that have a story. And the story to be told with this one is, well, it is a 25-cent fractional. Some of us would call that a quarter. And look who's on there. That's George Washington. This note is the very first time George Washington ever appeared on a quarter. That's why this note should be in the top 100. The first time George Washington appeared on a quarter, he actually appeared on all of the notes in this series. All they did was change the denomination. But like I said, in this series, it's the first time his image appeared on a quarter. To me, that would mean it is one of the most important notes of the top 100. So yes, I would put this in that list. That's number 9. Number 8. Now, I made a comment about the $1 note when I saw it listed in there. This is the $5 1934A North Africa emergency issue note. This is from World War II. It's emergency currency. And they did list the $1 note in the top 100 from North Africa. They did not list the 5 or the 10. Now, I wasn't going to put both the 5 and the 10 in this list, but what differentiates the 5 and the 10 from that 1 is right here. It's a silver certificate, so they did the numeral in blue. The serial numbers are in blue, but the seal is in yellow. That's what designates it as a North Africa note. North Africa note looks the same on the back, of course. Nothing on it says North Africa. You just have to know that's what it is. But what I find so neat about this note compared to the $1 note, the $1 note doesn't have this. There is no numeral on there. But on the 5 and on the 10, you get the gold seal, you get the bright blue of the numeral, you get the black ink, you get the white background, you get the green, you get all these colors on there. And yet the 5 and the 10 didn't make the list. So number 8 on my list of notes that should have been on there would be the $5 silver certificate from the emergency currency series from North Africa. That's number 8. Number 7. There are a number of Confederate currency notes listed in the top 100, and the one that surprised me was this one not being in there. This is the 1864 Confederate States of America $500 note. Now, this $500 note is one of the most popular ones that are out there. There are $500 notes that are more expensive, that are more rare, but this one is clearly the most popular. You're going to find a lot of these available at shows, and the prices on these are going up. This one's blank on the back. It does have this stain over here, but that's irrelevant. We're simply talking about the $500 Confederate States of America. You can see right here the date, February 17th, 1864. The signatures, of course, are hand-signed, and compared to the black ink here, you can see how these are starting to rust, oxidize, I guess is the proper term. And, of course, it being graded by PMG, I know it's the real thing. But the $500 1864 Confederate States of America $500 note did not make the top 100, and for as interesting of a note as it is, and for as often as you can see one, I was surprised it wasn't there. So this one is number 7 on my list. Number 6. I did not pull mine out of the safety deposit box, but I actually have a replica, which surprised me more than anything. This is a $500 bill. This one's 1934 A $500 bill. Not the real thing. This one's just a replica, and you can tell when you look at the back that that's a replica. This particular $500 bill, there was not a small-sized $500 bill listed in the top 100 notes. Now, everybody, especially now, everybody is looking for this particular note. This note and the 1,000 are just exploding in value right now. So the fact that none of the $500 small-size notes made the top 100, that is an oversight to me. When you compare this note to, the $100,000 note that was never released to the public, well, why is that on there? That wasn't ever used by anybody other than banks, so that's more of a check than a note. Whereas this, people have. To me, this is a real note. And like I said, I've got one in my safety deposit box, and I'm sure a lot of you have this particular note as well, but it did not make the top 100. So this one, the $500 small size note, Federal Reserve note, that should have been in there in my opinion, and that is number 6. Number 5. Now, I don't have this note, but I do have a replica. The thing is, the replica is the wrong size. They made it a large size, even though the small size notes are right here. And there is one other thing I have to point out of this. But first and foremost, this is from, this one is 1934. The one I was talking about is the 1928 $100 gold certificate. This is one of the wish list notes that I have. And the $100 gold certificate, just a really interesting note. You've got the gold seal on there. You've got the gold numbers here. This actually was backed by gold. They have a lot of the large size gold certificates in that list, but they don't list a single one of the small size gold certificates. So if you're going to choose a small size gold certificate to make the list, the $100 note should be the one in that list. Now, this particular replica is interesting to me because whoever did this replica, aside from making it a large size note, they put the wrong back on it. It has the correct back, but it's the wrong color. They put the gold color that you find on the 1922 and 1905 notes, but the small size note does not have the gold back. The small size note has the regular green. So I just thought it was neat when I looked at that particular note and saw that you can't even get a note that looks like this. Anyway, 1934 or 1928, preferably 1928, I guess, $100 gold certificate. It did not make the top 100, in my opinion. Most certainly should have. None of the small size gold certificates made it. Like I said, if you're going to pick one, this should be the one that's there. That's number 5, right? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Yep, number 5. Number 4. This one I found pretty interesting. This is an 1882 $20 Brownback. Yes, a Brownback. Now, the $20 Brownback, this is a national currency. You can see it says national currency here. These were put out by the national banks, or I should say that the Treasury sent people out to individual banks to see if they were solvent. If they were given a charter number. You can see this bank's charter number is right there. This particular bank is the National Bank of Decatur, Illinois. And that means Decatur, Illinois, well, the National Bank of Decatur, Illinois, put money on deposit. And by doing so, the Treasury would print national currency notes that were backed by this particular bank. Now, on the back, once again, you have their charter number. You've got an eagle for the U.S., and then you've got, on this side, the shield for Illinois. Now, whichever state happened to have had that particular bank in it, that's what would be on the back here. Now, the brownbacks, it's one of the few times you're ever going to see brown ink on a note, so it was pretty interesting to see the brownback. Now, what I find interesting is that most of the denominations of the brownback are on the top 100. I believe the 50 is there, the 5 is there, the 100 was there, but not the 20, and I don't know why. The only one that I have is the 20, and I was very disappointed to see that the 20 did not make the list. So if you're going to include all the other versions of this brownback, why not the 20? So that should definitely be on the list. That is number 4. Number 3, I've got the real one here. This one is a 1934 $1,000 bill. This one, the $1,000 bill, the 1928 version made the list, and it made the list, if I remember, at like number 99, so it just barely made the list. Yet there are so many other notes in that list that are $1,000 or more that aren't small size notes. So if you think this note is tough to get, imagine how hard it is to get a $10,000 note from 1880. I mean, you're just not going to see stuff like that. So to see a note like this, the 1934 $1,000 note, it's a note that everybody is after right now, yet it didn't make the list. Only the 1928 version did. So that is the 1934 $1,000 bill. Definitely a note that should have made the top 100, but didn't. That's number 3 on my list. Number 2, I talked about fractional currency earlier, and this particular note is a 50-cent note from the 4th series. Now, the way the list reads, there is a 3rd series 50-cent note, 50-cent fractional on there. And when I saw that, I thought it was talking about this particular note, and it turns out it wasn't. The 3rd series is not this. This is the 4th series fractional currency, and the 4th series came out in 1869. Now, what makes this so special? It's the first time that Lincoln ever appeared on a currency. Now, I don't know how many notes Lincoln has appeared on since this note, but I'm sure most of you have a picture of him in your pocket right now. The fact that they put fractionals in the top 100 and did not include the first time that Lincoln was ever appearing on a note just blows my mind. So the 50-cent fractional, the 4th series, not the 3rd. 3rd series made the list. This is the 4th series. 4th series fractional, 1869 50-cent fractional currency featuring Abraham Lincoln. Should have been a top 100 easy, in my opinion, but they missed it. So that's number 2 on my list as far as notes that should have been on there. Take a peek at the back real quick there. All right. And number 1. What is the number 1 note that I think should have made the list? Well, a lot of you probably know what note it's going to be because it's one of my favorite notes. It's the note that got me hooked. This is a 1922 $20 gold certificate. It says $20 in gold coin. The first time I ever saw this note, I was floored. I couldn't believe Washington was on something other than a 1. I couldn't believe that we had gold certificates. I knew about silver, just not gold certificates. I couldn't believe how big this particular note is, because 1922 is a large size note. I couldn't believe that they used gold instead of green for the seals. I couldn't believe they used the gold ink or orange ink on the back. So everything about this note blew me away, and it is the note that got me collecting. Now, the top 100 list does have the 1905 Technicolor version of this note, and that is the hyper expensive one. That's going to run you $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 without a problem. This is the less expensive version because it's not the Technicolor. These are much more affordable, but every bit as beautiful. And yet, this was not included in the top 100. So, number one on my list, the 1922 $20 gold certificate. My favorite note, and to me, just way overlooked by so many people. All right, guys, that's my top 10 list for this week. If you agree with my list, give me a thumbs up. If you have an idea for a list, go ahead and put that down in the comments below. If I can make your list in relatively quick time, I can put that together and have it out pretty quick. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate all the subscriptions. I appreciate all the comments. I do my best to answer all those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week.